2002 Ford Escort. Yeah, Escort ZX2. It just sounded weird the way I said it. Anyway, you can see I got all the stuff out. A lot of this stuff is taken apart. What a freaking nightmare. Anyway, so backstory in this car. So it came to me a few months ago, right? Because it was running good, but it had a check engine light and we had a lean code. So I changed the master airflow sensor, sent them down the road, and this is a normal customer of mine, right? So a few months later, they get another lean code, but this time the engine is running horribly. It's misfiring like crazy, and they said it was turning off and it was undrivable. Now I could not get back to her in time, so she ended up taking it to the nearest shop or wherever the car broke down, right? So they charged her $700 and they did a tune-up. They changed the master airflow sensor once again. They changed the plugs and wires, and they put a valve cover gasket on it, as you can see right there. $700, right? They told her your car's ready, come pick it up. She picks it up, she makes it a block away, and the car turns off because it's still doing the same exact thing. Okay? So she takes it back to the shop, and they tell her, oh, the engine is no good. The car needs a new engine. So at this point, she calls me and told me what's going on, and I told her, wait, so if now they're telling you the engine is bad and it needs to be replaced, why did they make you waste $700 on an engine that's bad? So she was really frustrated and really up. I mean, this woman is like ready to cry. Okay. So they told her now the engine's bad, and she's like, you know what, I just want my car back. I'm gonna take it somewhere else. I just want my car back. And they said, oh, we think the timing is out. It may need a timing belt or a timing chain, whatever this thing has. And she said, no, don't touch the car, leave it alone. And they're like, oh, my guys already started taking it apart, so she had to go and fight with them that she's not gonna pay for that because she didn't approve of it. They just started tearing into it. So she said, put it back together. I'm taking the car somewhere else. So at this point, they're telling her this car needs a new engine, right? So she's calling me, asking me if I could look at the car, at least try to make heads or tails of what's going on with the car before she sends it off to the junkyard. Alright, so that's why the car is here. Alright, so I pulled the car in. It was stumbling like crazy, right? Just running like crap. Checked for codes. We have misfire cylinder 2, misfire cylinder 4, and of course a lean code. Alright, I went ahead and did a relative compression test. Even though I knew I was going to pass it, I just did it anyway, just so I could have as much information as I can for the owner. In fact, you know, I'll put a screenshot up right here of what I found. So of course it turned out good, right? Like I said, the owner thinks the car is ready for the junkyard, so I'm trying to give her as much information as I can. So the RC test turned out good. What else did I find? Okay, so another thing I noticed is we had very high fuel trims. They were like short-term fuel trims, like 30, positive 30, right? And we had a upstream oxygen sensor that was stuck lean. All right, so we have to figure out what's going on with all of this stuff. Alright, so starting with the oxygen sensor. Initially I thought, do we have a stuck lean oxygen sensor and it's causing all of these problems? But no, I put some propane into the intake system while the car was running and it responded to the propane. It did go rich, and we actually got it to switch from rich to lean without a problem. So it was switching back and forth. There's nothing wrong with that sensor. It's doing its job. It's reporting a lean condition, hence the reason why we have lean codes. So the sensor, we could just push that aside for now, right? Now the fuel trims. To me it seemed like a vacuum leak, but I raised the RPM, and whenever you have a vacuum leak, if you raise the RPM, those short-term fuel trim numbers are going to come down, right? But that was not the case here. You could raise the RPM and the fuel trim numbers just stood at like positive 30. They would not decrease, try to get close to zero or anything like that. So I thought that was really weird, right? So it was it was time to look into these fuel trim numbers. So what I did is I pulled out the smoke machine, and I figure I'm gonna fill up the intake side of the engine, you know, the valve cover, everything having to do with the intake, with smoke, and we could use the gauge right here to determine if we have a leak somewhere. So basically this float is going to, you know, go up or down, and the higher it is, the larger the leak. So when I initially tapped into this line right here, I unplugged it off of the air intake box, and this is where I was feeding my smoke into. Initially we were about halfway up this gauge right here, so almost about 4. Okay, and at that point what I started to do is kind of, I don't know how do I put this, like block things off. Okay, so I disconnected the air intake box, or yeah, the intake tube, disconnected it. We plugged off the throttle body. It did not make a difference. And then I clamped down on this hose back here. It's way back here, going to the evap system. Didn't make a difference. I disconnected this hose and plugged it off. Again, no difference. And then I pinched off the hose going to the brake booster, and again, no difference. We still had a leak somewhere within the intake system. So I found there was another hose that goes from the underside of the intake manifold. It's a hard line. It comes this way, comes over here, and it connects to the PCV system. So I unplugged that, and I plugged off both ends. This is, I just put some rubber hoses on it so I could get to it easier. So you can see this one is plugged off, and it's going to the back of the intake manifold. And then I have another hose right here. Let me get a light for you. See, I have another hose right there with a brass fitting on it, and that's plugging off the end that's going to the actual PCV. So once I plugged off both of these, that's when this thing dropped all the way down. That was our leak. I don't know what's going on with it yet. I haven't figured that out, but I know the leak that we're having has something to do with the PCV system. Alright, so with that plugged off, I started to unpinch everything else that I previously did, just to make sure we don't have leaks anywhere else. So one by one I started to reconnect or unpinch what I did, and the float did not change, meaning our problem is with the PCV system. Whatever the heck's wrong with it, that's what's causing our lean code. There's way too much air being introduced into the system through that. Haven't figured that out yet, but we do know that's what the problem is. Alright, so let's circle back around and go back to our engine codes. We had a misfire on cylinder 2 and cylinder 4. Okay, so I pulled off cylinder number 2. I looked at the boot, everything looked fine. The spark plug looked fine. The spark plugs are brand new. For number 4, same thing. Pulled off the boot, and this is what I found on number 4. That's going to be hard to pick up, but you can see how it's burnt. And inside of there, the metal piece that connects to the top of the spark plug, it's completely rusted. Alright. Now when this was on the car for 2 and 4, I checked for spark, and we were getting spark using my test light. You know, the other end is grounded, and I was getting a good spark jumping out of here. Okay, even on number 2, it would jump a spark right out the boot. But once you put this on the actual spark plug, the spark is not making its way to the plug. Really weird. Well, it's not weird if you think about it. You know, the contact, the surface contact where it actually touches the spark plug just has too much corrosion on it. So that's why the spark isn't making it to number 4, and that's where our main issue is with all the jumping and the hesitating and the shaking of the engine is coming from there. So what I did was I did not have a replacement wire, and before we go out and buy a set of wires, I wanted to, you know, prove that that's a problem. So I just pulled my ignition wire off of the CRX. Now it's kind of long, it doesn't really fit perfectly. You can see how much it's sticking out right there, but it is on the spark plug. And the other end, I just kind of got it sitting inside of here the best I can, right? Alright, so let me make sure this is not gonna fall. Alright, so let's go ahead and turn it on. Enough talking. So this is with the bad ignition wire out of the equation, and this is with the PCV system, or PVC. PVC. I don't know, it keeps confusing the hell out of me. Positive crank ventilation, PCV. So it's with that stuff blocked off. Okay, so let's go ahead and start it. Now keep in mind, this thing ran horrible. I mean, bad, to the point where that they were able to tell the owner that the engine is no good, and it ran so bad that she believed it. Let me turn off this. Look at that, guys. The steering wheel is not even shaking. Smooth. I mean, it's as smooth as this car can be. It's amazing. So no, the engine is not toast, and it is not out of timing, and she doesn't need an engine in this car, or she doesn't need to junk the car. This is crazy. They took $700 from her. I mean, of course, we're not done. You know, we got to figure out, because it only runs good with the PCV system plugged off. That's about it. If you reconnect it how it's supposed to be, it goes back to running like crap. So if anyone has any insight on this, or is familiar with these cars and knows exactly why this is happening, go ahead and leave a comment. So I'm gonna keep looking into this. I don't know if I'm gonna record. I may record if I find something else going on with it, but I just wanted to share with you guys the amount of stress that this woman is going through with this other shop, and all the money that's been lost, because of course they didn't give her a refund, you know. Yeah, so I'll leave it right here for now. If I find anything else, I'll bring you guys along. Alright, so before I forget, I'm just gonna include this in the video right here. Remember how I said our oxygen sensor was stuck lean? It wasn't really doing anything. Now look at it. So the oxygen sensor does work. And look at the short-term fuel terms. Remember I said they were like positive 30? Now look at them. It's got a bad engine, huh? Needs a new engine. Oh, now the timing's out. Yep. Alright, so the car has been running for about 15 minutes. I'm actually out on a test drive. And let's look at the fuel trims, okay? Okay, so look at our short terms, alright? And our long terms are right there. Those are pretty good numbers if you ask me. Really good numbers. Oh, I forgot to say that we do have a new ignition wire for cylinder number 4. We got a complete kit, but all I did was pop on number 4 for now. But look at the upstream oxygen sensor. It's switching just how it should, so it works perfectly fine. And those fuel trim numbers look great. It seems to be really happy, and the car runs really good. Like I said, I'm maybe 15-20 minutes into a test drive, and I haven't experienced any problems at all. So whatever is going on with this PCV system, the engine does not like it. But having it plugged off, it's really happy. It drives good. So now I'm curious, what's going on with that system? Why is it technically a large vacuum leak? And it's hard to see, because there's like I don't know, I gotta look at it more closely, because it's kind of, the PCV where it plugs into is like tucked underneath the manifold. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see. I don't know if it plugs into its own housing, and that housing has a gasket. I don't know how the system is set up. Alright, so after test driving it for about a half hour and no problems at all, I talked to the owner, and you know, I told him for the most part it's running good, but it's with the PCV system blocked off, okay? And they said, well, it's an old car. As long as it works and it doesn't turn off and stumble like it used to, it just needs to get their kid to and from school. They said it's fine to just leave it like that, because I told them I could keep digging into it to see what's wrong with the PCV system, but it's really hard to get to. It's pressed up against the block underneath the exhaust manifold. So they said don't put any more time into it. As long as it's running good, that's all they care about. And I got it running right now. Look at the fuel trims. Long term is 19, and short term is, you can see right there, negative 18, negative 16. So they're counteracting each other, which is good, which is what you want to see.